A Senate committee in Kentucky has unanimously approved legislation that would have hefty penalties and fines to anyone who is trying to expose what happens in factory farms. Now, these are so-called ag-gag laws that protect these farms and allow them to do whatever they want. And certain journalists and whistleblowers are barred from leaking or releasing any information about some of the abuses that go on in these farms. Now, to give you a better idea of exactly what will happen to you if you do decide to be a whistleblower, or if you do enter their private property, you will be charged with a Class B misdemeanor, and you can get up to 90 days in jail and a $250 fine. And again, this is a way of deterring people from going into private property and releasing information about the abuses that are happening to the food that we consume.
Yeah, well, that's really comforting. For example, in an Owensboro hog farm, they were grounding up piglets' intestines and then feeding it to the other pigs. Oh, well, that's unsanitary, let alone disgusting. And when that was revealed, well, that hurt people's feelings. I mean, that might have affected their profits. It might have also affected our health. But how dare you expose that when you might have cost them a nickel or even a dime?
So this proposal was actually introduced right after the Humane Society released information about what was going on in these hog farms in Kentucky. So it's actually the Iron Maiden hog farm, Cenk. And yeah, they were grounding up intestines and they were feeding it to pigs, and it's of course unhealthy. And these are pigs that we consume. This is pork that we consume. So there was a lot of concern about that. So the politicians, of course, are going to listen to the owners of these farms, and they're going to follow the money, and they're not going to keep our best interests in mind. So what I love is that someone from the Kentucky Farm Bureau released a statement about this, and he's like, what? We don't have anything to worry about. We just got to trust the farmers to do the right thing. They'll regulate themselves. In fact, let me read you his statement. I would say to them that the care of livestock and poultry is the farmer's bottom line. The better they take care of their animals, the better those animals are going to do when they go to market. Oh yeah, definitely. That's why we've had so many incidents where people have gotten extremely sick from livestock coming from these factory farms that abuse their animals regularly. Like at least twice a year you hear stories about people with E. coli sicknesses and all of that stuff. So it's ridiculous. I don't know. This makes me angry because this goes against freedom of speech. This goes against freedom of the press. If you are a journalist, this is the kind of stuff that you should be exposing. And now there are laws on the books, or will be laws on the books if this passes, that'll prevent you from doing that.
I don't know what you're talking about. And I remember when they said storing chemicals in Texas wasn't regulated, and that worked out really well. Remember with that giant frickin' explosion of where they stored the chemicals. Oh, right. It turns out sometimes people cut corners if you don't regulate them and say, hey, make sure that you protect people that are working for you, that are working around you, and by the way, that also consume your food if you're working on a farm. Now, by the way, that farm in Owensboro, when they named it the Iron Maiden Farm, I might have sent in a couple of cameras just to make sure that it was going to be okay.
Yeah.
Now, this is not the only place they've tried this. 15 different states they've tried ag-gag bills. In Tennessee, they found a video of a horse being beaten, and so immediately after that, they're like, we got to stop that. Not the horse being beaten, but videotaping of the horses being beaten.
So the Humane Society says that there have been as many as 15 of these ag-gag laws proposed, and none of them have passed, but they're actually wrong about that. There have been certain variations of these laws passed in several states, of course, a lot of red states. In Idaho, which was the most recent state to pass such legislation, the governor signed it into law, and it would impose fines and jail time on activists who secretly film abuse on Idaho's commercial farms. It came about as the result of the animal rights organization Mercy for Animals released a video of animal abuse by workers. So of course the government, instead of responding to those abuses, they respond to the whistleblowers or the investigators who find the abuses happening. Montana has had a law in the books since 1991. And again, it's a variation. They're not all the same. It differs from one state to another. North Dakota since 1991. In Utah since 2012, obtaining employment under false pretenses is considered illegal. And the reason why they did that was because people would get hired at these farms so they can secretly record what was going on. So this was the government's response to that. They're like, no, we got to protect our companies, okay?
In the new one proposed in Kentucky, you could get 90 days in jail. How dare you tell us how unsanitary our food is? Send that guy to jail, show him a lesson, right? It's become so commonplace, like JR was saying in the first hour. that they were like, oh, yeah. Well, obviously, the first thing you got to do is protect corporations.
Yeah.
And by the way, if that legislator is correct, or the guy from the Kentucky Farm Bureau is correct, and you got, well, the farmers would naturally take care of their animals so well anyway, then great, then you don't mind us taping it.